Welcome to the King's Podcast, the ultimate guide of film and television. Okay, this is my last episode. So that was not my last episode, but this is gonna be my last one. I'm disgusted with myself. Hello, beautiful people. If you are listening to this, congratulations, you have made it into September. We are more than halfway through the year of 2025. And honestly, what an absolute shitstorm this year has been. To tell you the truth, I don't know how I'm surviving. I feel like every second of a day there's just this new historic moment that happens, and the world just seems like spiraling out of control. If honestly someone told me that we are all in purgatory and we all died in 2020, I will believe them, because this timeline does not feel real at all. At all. So I hope everyone is staying safe. I hope everyone's keeping informed, staying hydrated, maintaining their sanity, still being hopeful during these dark times, but also finding ways to find joy and use the rage in constructive areas. You know, find ways to channel that, because there's a lot of reasons to be enraged, and there's a lot of reasons to call for action during these days. But I am not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about something completely different, but I just kind of wanted to, first off, start off just being just a quick little temperature check to make sure that everyone is just doing the best they can. That's all we can ask for. And I will start off to say that I actually didn't know I was going to come back, to tell you the truth. I didn't know I was going to come back to record this podcast or not. And somehow I believe we are now in our 4th season of the King's Podcast. And I, wasn't necessarily feeling inspired to record again or anything like that. But there has been some really interesting conversations that I've been having in like real life in real time. And I was like, this would be an interesting topic. And so before I dive into the topic that I wanted to talk about, I actually want to just share that I have actually really enjoyed a lot of the creative, like the art that I've consumed this year. I've really have been enjoying it in terms of sort of like the media that I consumed. I really liked One of Them Days. I thought it was a hilarious film. I loved Sinners. If you haven't checked out Sinners, do yourself a favor, check it out. Really, it should be watched in the cinema. I think it was made to be seen in the cinema. I really love Elio. That was an underrated Pixar film, and I'm really pissed off. It did not do well in the box office. It did not deserve it. I cried at the end of it. I'm not gonna lie, got really, really emotional. I thought Bad Guys 2 was hilarious. I took my nieces to watch it, and I laughed throughout. It was so funny. But I also realized I'm a big fan of cartoons, so, it doesn't take much to appease me when it comes to animation. Just have really good animation and a lot of great jokes and great storyline. And I'm there. I am sold. And I loved Weapons. These are like the films I watched in cinema and the cinema. I think every single film that I watched, I thoroughly enjoyed, that I spend money to see. I am so ecstatic that I saw that in cinema. I actually will do a review about Weapons because that's more the most recent one I've seen. In terms of TV, I'm watching The Gilded Age. Love it. 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 And I really love the limited series called Adolescence. Adolescence on Netflix. Please watch that. It's incredible. It's like my worst nightmare come to life. Watching that was like living through my worst nightmare. And I'm so thankful that Stephen Graham decided to push it and create it. The writing is fantastic. The acting is spectacular. I love all the stylistic choices they did in directing. I am such a huge sucker for the long takes, the one take long takes. I'm just such a sucker for it, and I feel like they should do more of it in film and TV. They don't do so much of it, but I would love for them to do it. I Now I'm going to get into the topic about reality television, because there's been a lot of conversation. Reality TV does a really great way of like opening dialogue when it comes to dating and the nightmares that we women or single people just in general have to deal with when it comes to the dating scene. And I actually wanted to talk about Love Island UK. So the premise of Love Island, you take a bunch of hot people and you put them on an island and you get them to do a bunch of challenges, and they're supposed to form connections. Love connections. It originated in the UK, is really popular during the summer times, and there's other popular adaptations. I believe there's Love Island Australia, and I feel there's other places in Europe. I can't think of them off the top of my head. But then recently, there's been Love Island, the USA. That's one of the newest adaptations of Love Island. And not until last year did Love Island USA really like pick up, because most people were really into Love Island UK, the original, the OG. And Love Island USA season 6 kind of like really started it off of becoming like this like cultural phenomenon in the US. The winner last year was Serena and Cordell, and they had this kind of like friends to lovers storyline. And I think for a lot of times, Cordell was kind of like friend zone a lot of times from Serena. I remember really liking him. I thought he was adorable, but I remember the first episode I ever saw of that season, no one really was picking him because I guess he was more on the shorter side. But I just always thought he was so cute. And so I was really happy that that pairing won. I didn't really watch too much of that season. But things were kind of like crazy now, like recently, when you kind of see the whole thing about Shanae and Kenny. I guess we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But the most recent season of Love Island USA just ended the summertime, so season 7. And so one thing I wanted to talk about was the politics of desirability. The politics of desirability when it comes to dating shows. And I'm going to really be speaking specifically about the politics of desirability within the framework of Love Island. Usually in these types of dating shows, there is a certain look of woman that is considered to be like the high valued woman, like the woman who everybody wants to date, the most desirable woman, the most desirable option. And I'm not talking just about sexual desire. I'm talking about like wanting and yearning, the woman you're supposed to fall in love with, the one you should have a connection with, the one you want to actually have children with and marry and be forever, the woman who is supposed to be chosen. It's usually a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, maybe sometimes, tiny waist, maybe a little bit heavier, like more like well-endowed when it comes to the boost area. So that's usually the ideal type of beauty. And you always have these instances where the casting people, they were trying to, cast diversity, but a lot of the time they were cast like men who were not attracted to Black women. And that's just how it's always been. Like Love Island UK, all the time you would have these Black women be put in these very unsafe situations with men. Didn't matter whether they were Black or white or whatnot, who did not desire Black women. Black women were not who they picked, who they wanted to be with. If anything, they would probably want to sleep with them on the side, like be like undercover about them, just sort of like a secret fantasy, whatever, get their rocks off. But Black women were never considered to be the object of affection, the object of adoration. That's just how it was. And so for all these shows, like Too Hot to Handle, Perfect Match, there was always these conversations about sort of like desirability in Black women. And then you kind of get to season 6 of Love Island, and you were having Black women be chosen. And Black women be chosen by Black men and non-Black men of men of color who weren't Black as well. And so that was that kind of the look. And from that season, PPG were really popular. But there's a lot of conversations that is happening with this latest season of Love Island, because what people are really used to seeing, they're used to seeing Black women being pushed aside, Black women not being desired. And so you have a cast member, Olandria. Olandria is a beautiful, dark chocolate queen. I mean, this woman looks like she was shaped by God. Like, her features are just, like, it's just unfair how beautiful she is. Her eyes, her cheekbones, like her non-existent waist. Olandria is gorgeous. And her skin honestly looked like God just decided to like dip like a body in chocolate, in dark chocolate, and says, here you go. Like the original Eve, that's how she looks. She just is absolutely stunning. But I'm coming, as a woman, so I'm, going to be looking at it differently than usual, being a Black woman. I will look at things a little differently than if I was a non-Black woman or if I was a man. So usually someone like Olandria is someone who's not deemed as desirable. Then you have, just in the world that we live in, I'm not talking about what should be in reality. Then you have this other cast member named Nick. And Nicholas is a tall, white boy from Florida. Tall white boy from Florida. He's 24. He has green eyes, curly hair. I believe he's half Belgian. His dad is from Belgium. And Nick has his eye on Olandria. And people are doubting whether or not he really is attracted to Olandria. They keep on saying, oh, he's not really attracted to Olandria. He just sees her as a friend. And their pairing is not authentic. They're just, showing interest for clout. And there's something that feels very nefarious about sort of these like accusations, these baseless accusations that people are coming up with the pairing of Olandria and Nicholas, who the fans have affectionately called Nick Olandria. And now the new name that we're outside the show is the Van Cartons, which I love. I think they should really go by that because it seems very high fashioned. And it seems glamorous and, awards show darlings and all that good stuff. I truly believe that people would have been comfortable with the pairing of Nick and Olandria if Nick had just pursued this as a physical attraction, just being like, oh, I just want to hit it. It was like a one-time thing. If he kind of spoke about her in a way that he didn't necessarily see her as, more of if he saw her as an object of sexual desire as opposed to really desiring her as a whole being, really seeing her and saying that she's the most beautiful woman he's ever seen, treating her like a queen, like kissing her hands, holding her hands while she walks down the stairs, keeping the seat warm for her, giving her like compliments, like real compliments, and not just like, trying to sweet talk her to get in her pants, like really, and being like a huge cheerleader for her on the show and especially off the show, seeing her as someone to protect, to nurture, to pour into. This is something people cannot grasp. That Nicholas wants to pour into Orlandria. He wants to cater to her needs, nurture her. He's the embodiment. If he wanted to, he would. As Perry Edwards would say. This is kind of what's going on, because prior to Orlandria, Nicholas was paired up with Sierra. He had a little love triangle with Bella and Sierra, and he ended up pursuing his connection with Sierra until Sierra was kicked off the show because of some racist comments about Asian people. And so his connection with Sierra was cut off. And so a lot of times people are now saying, hey, Nick is owning with Orlandria because he didn't want to be kicked off the show. They're like using things for clout. But this is not even an accusation they've put in for other pairings of the show. This was not even with Iris and Pepe. And Iris and Pepe were pretty much together for around the same time that Orlandria and Nick were together, right? And now that the show is over, Iris and Pepe have completely broken up. But no one ever said that, hey, Iris and Pepe were just together for clout. They were just there for fun. Even with Amaya and Brian, no one really felt the need to have conversation about the fact that their relationship was fake and just for clout. And Amaya and Brian are not together anymore, right? By the time the reunion came about, we had 2 breakups by the time the reunion aired. So there was more juicy things happening off camera after reunion passes. Like as soon as like the contract ended, they were like, hey, we don't have to pretend that we really like each other anymore, so let's dip out. I'm just making a joke. I most likely enjoy a majority of the cast members on the show, and I'm actually excited seeing how they're doing. And there's just been like a lot of conversation that is happening, that has happened within the cast member, within the press. And it really does kind of come boils down to everyone, especially, it seems like this social commentary is happening within white people, like white women and white men having this conversation, like they cannot believe that Nick would be attracted to Orlandria the way that they're like the main ones who are saying with their whole chest, oh yeah, he's not into her. He's not. They're just friends. They have no chemistry. Even though you see them together, like the New York Fashion Week pictures I saw of them, they were giving me vampire-coated wet pad. That's what they were giving me, like wet pad fan fictions come to life. That's what they were giving me. That is what they were giving me. And I was being well fed. And as someone who is a proud book girly, I love Nick and Orlandria. I love their pairing together because it's a slow burn. They're yearning. The friends to lover trope. This is all the things that I love. Hey, people were even like convinced that Nick was actually a fae. And if you know anything about books, I can see it. I can see how he could be a fae, because the fae are known, they never tell a lie, right? So they may have like a little bit of a riddle, but within the riddle, there's always the truth. They will never ever flat out lie. So like the whole Sierra situation, he never really would be like, oh, am I like your dream girl? He didn't really answer, right? That's a very fae answer. And some people are like, what's a fae? Basically, faes are fairies, but as opposed to like Tinkerbell, where they're like really small, they're like supposed to look like humans. Like they're the fays in like these books and sort of like the romanticy books are like human size and they're beautiful. Kind of in ways like in the Tolkien universe, the elves are supposed to be in so in these like books, the fays are kind of like the elves. You know, they're like tall and strikingly beautiful. Everyone is drawn to them. That's kind of and even look wise, I think Nick does kind of look like he could be a fae. And honestly, their pairing kind of looks like it could be like a vampire and fae, or both vampires together. This is just me being a book girly. So my book girly self is coming to life. And even I would go to talk about because it's even with like another contestant, Shelley, right? Both Alandria and Shelley, they were like in some ways they were like kind of miniature PPG. Their friendship is so endearing, and I really hope that they remain friends throughout the show because I really thought they were really adorable together. And Shelley is from Haiti. She's also stunning, and you had men chasing after Shelley too, right? And it seemed like men for all walks of life. You had Chris, who was a basketball player. You had Ace, who was like a TikTok influencer, dancer. And also Austin for one time. I think, was it Charlie? Someone else was like interested in Shelley for a hot minute. So you also had people going after her as well, like really hoping to gain a relationship with Shelley too. And so what I really do love in terms of the casting for like the Love Island USA is they seem to cast men who are attracted to black women, right? Because a lot of time, like in the UK, they cast men who are not attracted to black women. And so they become this like really gaslighting situation where these black women are just like for our entertainment are just like mentally and emotionally abused on these shows. Their self-worth is dragged through the mud, and that's kind of what is expected, right? We're expected to be not chosen, not picked, and it's supposed to be like normal. And you have people like making fun about things like this season, like I picked Clark, you know, kind of like making fun of the fact that Alandria wasn't chosen. And that's even I'm talking about colorism, right? Because even among like for like desirability, the closer you are to whiteness, that is who you should be fucking with. You know, I'm just talking like literally, but I'm just saying that's who you should really want to be with, right? So a woman who is going to look closer to a white woman. Or you're going to date a non-black woman who is going to spend thousands of dollars to have features to look like a black woman, right? So she's going to have a butt lift. She is going to have inject her lips all kinds of ways to look the way that black women were born already looking, that you've told us makes us ugly. But soon you put on someone else's body that's not black. Oh, they're so attractive. They're so gorgeous. Get out of here. Oh gosh. Ridiculous. And then you have other situations where nothing really like pisses me off more than seeing a black woman be mistreated and seeing other people, particularly if it happens to be like black men, talking down to black women and talking about down to black women in a non-black area, a non-black space, saying, oh, I need to put black women don't know how to be put in their place. And I'm just, I just came from seeing this like whole video about some man talking about how he doesn't date black women because black women don't know this space. So maybe that's where my brain is going. You're probably like, where did this conversation come from? I just came across this video that pissed me off this morning. So it's just like really fascinating to me. But like, so there's all these like discourse, right? And so that's also something that I do see online as well. People kind of having this like humiliation ritual when it comes to black women and wanting to put black women in their place. That's what they want to like knock you a few pegs down. And I did mention I was going to talk about Janae and the tragedy of her being in a relationship with a man for over 1 year who is not attracted to black women at all. Said every single racial thing under the book with faking the emotions just to get the money, just to get clout from her. That is some evil, wicked shit. Excuse my French, but it is. And especially to do it to someone like Janae, who is such a light. She's so warm. She's so kind. And I remember I started watching Beyond the Villa, and I didn't really watch too much the last season of Love Island. But I just remember really liking her personality. And I was like, yeah, Kenny is good looking. But I remember, like, when the show started, there was people saying, like, Kenny didn't seem that into her as she was into him. And I watched it. I was like, I can see it. Compared to the other pairings, like, he was, like, putting on a show. And a lot of people love to compare the relationship with Janae and Kenny to Nick and Alandria. What I've seen so far from watching the show and seeing how they interact outside of the show, Nick can actually offer things to Alandria. Kenny could not offer anything to Janae. He was just riding on her coattails. Nick already had connections within the fashion space. And he was like, hey, I'm going to bring Alandria over here because Alandria deserves to be a model. And we know what something that's really crazy. Alandria is short. She's like 5'2", 5'3". She gives such tall energy. I thought she was like 5'10" or something. She looks really tall. So it's really cute kind of seeing her. She did her first like walk, like runway, and just seeing her with the other models. I was like, oh, you're not tall. But she has tall energy, and I love that. The height difference is another thing that I love. I love height differences. I really do. But just a side note. So you just kind of see, like, and people are like salvating? Is that the word? At the idea of like Alandria having like a Janae thing. Just like they want a black woman to be hurt. They want to like knock her down. And I hate that. I am always in the school of thought, I love when a black woman gets loved. I don't necessarily care who's loving her. I just want black women to be openly loved. If it's black love, great. Great. I love that. If it's an interracial love story, also good. I love that for her. I just love for black women to be loved, respected, treated kindly, allowed to be soft, allowed to play into their feminine energy, as it always has to rely on the masculine energy. But we never really given that grace. And they always expect us to act a certain way. And if we don't, if we present ourselves in any other way that they, with their narrow-minded way of thinking, don't, then they think that we're not really being our true, authentic selves. Because that's always a conversation with Alandria and Shelley, right? They weren't being their authentic selves. But they knew as being black women, they weren't allowed, they were not given the grace to crash out the way Huda was. If they were acting like Huda, they would have been dragged from here all the way to Timbuktu to Beijing. They would have been dragged everywhere online because that's what's expected. Black women are not given the luxury of crashing out. Even though we should. With everything that's going in the world, let us crash out. Let us have moments where we just can't take it and be emotional. But also, just let us be able to feel anything what we want to feel. If we want to cry, let us cry. If we want to be angry, let us be angry. If we want to skip and roll along and do, like, blow out dandelions all day and just live in a dream world, let us do that too. My word. I don't even know where I'm going, but I'm just going here. I just been going, just like ranting. Why not? Just end it with like a rant. But that mostly was what I wanted to talk about in this short time space. I don't think I have anything else to say. I really don't. I think that's it. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope that my little podcast made you a little bit happy. If you have enjoyed this episode, make sure that you like and subscribe. And if you really love it, go ahead and share it with anyone you think may enjoy it as well. And I've got to go because the wrap-up music is coming out right now, and I didn't really have time to thank all the people I had to thank, but gotta go. God bless.